Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I am so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this episode. While I was while I was unaware of it at the time, my real compensation for that job wasn't monetary. It was learning about and getting comfortable with rejection. And as I would later realize, indifference to rejection is a fundamental part of being an entrepreneur. Sam Zell, from his book, Am I Being Too Subtle? Our guest today, friend of the Culture Matters podcast, author of The Blueprint, founder of Holmes uh, Drafting Services, background in civil engineering, CEO of The Contractor, with our friend of the Culture Matters podcast, the one and only Reagan Weiss, Nick Holmes, entrepreneur, someone that gets things done. That's why I picked that quote. And founder of the Holmes Family Foundation and um, ApeShot Media. So much more we can discuss and talk about. But thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast. I'm excited to dive into what you're working on, how you met our buddy Reagan, who's a force to be reckoned with on the Culture Matters podcast, and so many other exciting and fun things. Your recent trip to Las Vegas, among others. Thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast.
Dude, thanks for having me, Jay. This is something I've been looking forward to for a while. So
Likewise. Hey, what do you think about that quote? And have you ever heard of Sam Zell?
I haven't heard of Sam Zell before, but man, that quote definitely I think is going to resonate with a lot of people there. That's really one of those things where learning how to handle rejection is just, every no is one step closer to a yes, right? So I think that's something that a lot of people can learn from.
Did you identify that with in the beginning of your career, or did you have to learn that from, start? Because my thought would be starting a drafting, engineering service. You're interacting with a lot of people in the trades, in the
Oh, absolutely.
construction space that may not necessarily have, Ivy League educations or something like that, and they're just trying to get by and build whatever that
Yep.
is they're building. So I'm curious, the rejection piece, did you have to learn that? Did you already have that figured out in the beginning, or did you have to learn that getting smacked in the face?
Now, listen, man, I got a interesting start to Holmes Drafting Services, hopping into it. So, just give you a little bit of background on me and how that all got going. Out of college, I went to work for a company in the Villages, Florida. Not
The villages.
familiar with the Villages or not, but it's pretty much I believe it is the largest retirement community in the United States currently. And, this is back in late 2009, early 2010 that I got my start back there. Um, but working in construction there, the village is its own little bubble. Okay, it's kind of separate from the rest of the construction world. So, um, luckily 2009, 2010, you can imagine it's kind of right as the recession kind of hit that bottom, right? And the housing market was just starting to come back a little bit, but the village is being so insulated as it is, made things a lot easier for me to go ahead and get started there. But I kind of did my time there and learned a lot about construction. And then, 2018 is when I went fully out on my own. So I spent about 8 years in the villages, and then yeah, the beginning of the beginning of Holmes Drafting Services was daily rejection, right? I mean, it was me door knocking contractors trying to get their actual business. So absolutely can go ahead and resonate with a lot of no's before you start getting some yeses.
What are some, for the contractors that listen to you, what are some of the biases or perceptions they have of your trade based on experience that they may have had with other, like, what's that relationship even look like?
Yeah, so it's an interesting industry to be in, right? Because as the drafting side, when I first started Holmes Drafting Services, we didn't have an engineering component to that. Okay,
I
so
just want to say, when I think of draft as a layperson, I'm thinking of like drafting for the military.
right, yeah, no,
So even
so
put this in context so people
yeah,
aren't
so
triggered.
What drafting is on that is basically the creation of blueprints. Okay, so any contractor that needs to go ahead and get something approved through a municipality has to submit a set of blueprints. Our company primarily designed those blueprints for those contractors. And then in the very beginning, we outsourced to a third party engineer to seal our documents, basically review and approve and put their name behind them. So now we have a new company called Sealed Plans, which is another company that I own separate from Holmes Drafting Services. That is that engineering aspect now. So we've kind of got both sides of that coin. But realistically, the relationship between drafting agency and contractor is always one that's a lot of times you're working against each other. Like we set the kind of parameters where they need to be. They obviously want to do things a little bit cheaper if they can. um, but we have ways that we need to kind of get things squared away. So having that understanding with a lot of these contractors is a great way to kind of elevate that business and get people to start using you for the repeat business. So initially starting off, my biggest hurdles and coming into this as a relative newcomer to the industry. I was still young when I kind of came into this. I was in my late 20s. Um, and you're dealing with these contractors that are in their mid 50s, early 60s, running these construction companies, and there's not saying that there's ageism in the market, but honestly, they're looking at you like, okay, come on, what's this kid gonna go ahead and be able to, teach us on this side? What do they actually know? Are we gonna have to handhold them through this entire process to go ahead and get these plans done? Because construction is all about speed, So I think a lot of that was the majority of our no's in the beginning until we could actually show that we had some kind of pedigree behind us and
Mm.
show that we knew what we were doing.
Why is there what's the tension between the contractor and the design? Because
Yeah, so the tension aspect is we have to design thing within the parameters of the code, right? So my main job is making sure that what you want to build is not going to fall down and kill somebody, right? So we've got kind of the public safety aspect in mind. The contractors have, I want to build this for as cheap as possible. Um, so a lot of that tension comes when they say, "Hey, I want to build it out of XYZ material." And then we come back and say, "Hey, ran the numbers, don't feel comfortable with that. You're gonna have to, put in something that's a little bit more expensive to get the job done." Um, so when you go ahead, if you ever seen some type of architectural buildings where they got these crazy huge open spans and there's no supports anywhere, it's all just these cantilevered aspects. A lot of times we have to come in and say, hey, it's possible, but it's going to be very expensive to do that.
mm,
And that's where some of that tension comes in.
I saw a story recently where there was a party for a young child, and the deck fell,
Mm-hmm.
like the
Yeah, no,
deck collapsed. I don't know what the outcome of that was, but it sounds like that's what you're alluding to here.
and that's a lot of what comes into it, right? So we have to design things off of what's called a factor of safety, right? So there's a assumed value of how people are planning to use the actual structure. And we have to go ahead and basically say, okay, if we're going to plan this at 50 pounds a square foot, basically our material needs to be able to cover a factor of safety of 2. So it needs to be able to withstand 100 pounds a square foot if we're only anticipating it to be used at 50. So
Mm.
that's where the material aspect comes into play there. But um, listen, a lot of our code was created to, fix stupid, unfortunately, right? Like somebody did something that, ended up hurting somebody, and now we've got codes that go ahead and
I,
prevent against it.
I like that for a book too. Fix stupid.
Yeah.
You got to do the blueprint so you can get to the point where you can fix stupid. No, I'm thinking because 50 to 100, it was like, yeah, when we did it, I was I was 60 pounds less. And, and I've gained weight. All of a sudden, the patio collapses. We had the best of intentions. It's fascinating to me. Is like these are the maybe less frequently discussed conversations that actually have practical day to day utility.
That's exactly it. Yep. And you get a lot of good contractors. Look, contractors get a bad rap, and I will go ahead and say that as someone who owns a construction company now, I know that there's a lot of stuff with contractors that people people see them as just a profit hungry industry, and not really caring about a lot of quality. But that's not true for the majority of contractors that I've met. A lot of people truly do care about the product that they're putting out there, regardless of the cost. But there's always going to be that relationship between contractor and homeowner, right? So a couple bad apples kind of spoil the bunch, and it's one of those things that we're consistently combating.
You mentioned that speed was so important. Why?
Well, so essentially everything in construction revolves around speed. The faster you can do something, the more profit margin you're going to have in it, and that's strictly strictly due to labor usually. The longer anything drags out in construction, the more builders risk insurance you're going to pay, the more actual labor charges you're going to have. So like that overhead aspect
Mm,
starts ballooning over time. Whereas like the material cost is still going to be the same material cost, but if you can do something faster, you're going to have a larger margin in it just because you don't have the labor aspect and the overhead aspect that you're paying for.
mm. Well, I love that. What, in your experience and your blueprint, in a sense, would you say core values lead to speed?
So I can talk to you specifically on the drafting side first, right?
Okay.
So like, our drafting company has five primary core values, and some people say that's too much. I believe that's healthy for our company, right? So we've always had the same core values, but this is something that we drill home for the people that are coming onto our company, right? So first and foremost for our company is integrity. And I'm sure a lot of companies are going to go ahead and resonate with integrity. But if you can't operate with integrity, you don't belong at our company in general. We are an industry that needs to be trusted, right? We are an industry that needs to have the integrity to where we're not bending the rules to go ahead and satisfy one person or the other. This is a very integrity based organization. Um, our second core value is family, right? Um, and that probably to your question kind of goes against the speed aspect, right? Because as our staff comes in and our staff goes ahead and really you get more people on, a lot of the family aspects are going to come up more often. But I believe that our staff is here to go ahead and provide for their families. They're working as a means to an end, right? That a lot of the people aren't invested in the organization. They're invested in what the organization can do for them. So our organization cares about their family, their aspects, and we understand that family comes first. So we don't ever prioritize our jobs over family. Um, the next two we kind of go over quickly is transparency and consistency. I think they go kind of hand in hand, but um, transparency. When we mess up, we go ahead and let people know that we've messed up. When the ball gets dropped, we're the first people to say, "Hey, ball got dropped." We need to go ahead and just let you know up front. This is what happened, and kind of move on from that aspect. But we want to be consistent in everyone's day-to-day interaction with our company, right? So when we get these contractors that come in, they take a chance on our company and they want to go ahead and start giving repeat business to us. They need to have a consistent product and have to know consistently what to expect from our organization because that helps them relay to their clients what to expect down the line. It helps the communication aspect entirely. And then our last core value is kind of twofold. It's flexibility or adaptability. We kind of use those two words interchangeably, but our industry changes every 3 years. So every 3 years we get a new building code or an updated building code in Florida, and we need to go ahead and learn how to kind of change on the fly and adapt to what those processes are, and technologies change all the time. So I think that aspect alone is one thing that we understand construction is not going to be the same forever. There's always going to be improvements coming along. We want to go ahead and adapt and change along with that. So that's how our drafting company operates, and a lot of those core values bleed over into the other organizations that we have. but realistically, we're focused more on the product that we put out rather than just the speed that we do it in when we get things put together.
The product?
Yeah, the product. So I mean, our product for the drafting company is the blueprint, right? It's the for the construction company, it is the end all product of the home or the addition that we're doing. Um, so we do look at just about everything that we do as a service based.
The contractors that work in the drafting,
Mhm.
that build that partnership with the drafting, why
Yeah.
is drafting so important to them in their business?
So realistically, you can't get a solid price on what you're doing until you have a set of plans. Right? So, like any contractor can walk in and say, "Hey, what do you want to do? Oh, we're going to add a bedroom over here." I'm going to say it's probably going to be about 40 grand, right? Without a set of blueprints, you got no idea where that cost actually is because you got nothing to actually bid off of. So, by a contractor having a good relationship with a drafting agency, they can go ahead and get a plan done pretty quickly so they can make sure for their client, the end user, the homeowner, that all the bids are coming in apples to apples. So a lot of times we go ahead and we'll work with contractors and we'll also work directly with homeowners. Some of these homeowners come in and say, "Hey, I want to get a plan before I even start talking to contractors. That way I know that all the bids are coming in and they're exactly comparable."
So would you say that there's a um the contractor from experience, from intuition, they may on the spot attempt to respond to a question of a customer, and
Yeah.
they'll be close or far away from reality
Right.
based on all sorts of factors, how accurate their intuition or experience or so on. But if they have a more proactive relationship with a firm like yourself, they could get maybe closer to that target to answer that question when they get it.
Well, that's exactly it. Yeah. So I mean,
Like
they'll
a
be able
reactive
to
contractor versus a proactive contractor. Trying to
exactly.
conceptualize, yeah. But some
And
homeowners are very proactive, where they're like talking to your organization before going to the get the bids. So there's
right.
you can even see it. Like, I'm curious your thoughts on that.
So our typical client that is a homeowner that's already been through this process once before. Okay. So someone who's reached out to multiple contractors, got prices just all over the map. And nothing really honed in because that's what a lot of contractors are going to do. You're going to have a bunch of people come in and their pricing's going to be a little bit variable as it is, but they're going to start giving ballparks and you're always going to go high on a ballpark, right? It's if I'm looking at that, garage edition, yeah, I'll probably tell you, hey, it's probably gonna be between 100 and 130 grand, right? As a ballpark. Uh, Go get plans and I'll tell you exactly what my cost is. Because then you have something to actually bid off of. So the homeowners, if they've been through that process before, they typically know to reach out to some type of design agency first, so that they have the products and saying, "Hey, I want contractor A, B, and C to quote off this set of plans, so I know comparably how these guys are going to kind of line up as far as their pricing. Who's the high guy, who's the low guy, and then we can get our actual pricing that way." A lot
What
of
was
times
the? Okay.
contractors use that, not to cut you off there, but
No,
a lot
no.
of contractors use that as a way to kind of vet the homeowner anyway, right? Like, so you get a lot of people that are window shopping as a contractor. So as a contractor, they can come and say, "Hey, I think your ballpark's probably going to be somewhere around here. Go pay those guys, a much smaller fee to get the plan started at least. And if they're serious about actually getting a plan going, and they put that money out, you've got a live uh, client at that point. Someone who's actually serious about moving forward. You're not going to waste all your time bidding out something that they don't necessarily plan on moving forward on."
What size contractors generally super reliant on the drafting service partnership?
I would say, man, we get a whole broad spectrum of contractors that come to us. I mean, from just screen enclosure guys that are just doing, screen cages over pools, to full custom multi-million dollar, homes. We've done some work on schools. We've done some work on, large commercial strip malls. So it's all over the map.
Hmm.
I mean, realistically, you cannot get a permit without a set of engineered blueprints.
Where would you say that those in your industry go wrong the most and easy in the most easy fashion?
So you're going to see in our industry a lot of one man shops. Okay, it's a lot of single man shops. We've grown our business over time to go ahead and kind of elevate ourselves outside of that. Um, but a lot of times, what happens is these guys get into kind of a single product issue, right? So like they only deal with certain size products of just residential. I'll tell you a quick little story, but it's also in the book. But during COVID, the only thing that saved us was that we had diversified into commercial. Okay. So a lot of our work is in home. Okay, so I'll send out our sales team to go meet with a client on site, take physical measurements of the existing house as it currently sits so that we can plan on how to do this addition or remodel properly, right? When COVID first hit, there was no in-home anything. Everyone was, terrified, right? So the industry that didn't stop at all during COVID was commercial changeouts and tenant changeouts, right? That was the one thing that kept us going because the commercial side didn't care, right? Like the commercial still has to be built because businesses are still going ahead and moving in. There's leases already signed. It's a long process on the commercial side. So I think the biggest mistake that a lot of single man design agencies run into is that they don't diversify the type of product that they offer.
Why not?
It's a lot of work. So realistically, unless you have the support staff to hop into that, you're not gonna be able to put out the same amount of volume. Usually we make our money off of volume. So Holmes Drafting Services does between probably 16, 1,700 plans a year. Um,
Wow.
Right. And I mean, these aren't incredibly low margin, but they're not. You're not going to retire off, 30 of them a year, right? So, um, I think a lot of what happens is that these smaller guys that don't want to take the risk and jumping in and hiring more people, they stay as a kind of like a solopreneur type mindset. They have to have that volume going, and the residential stuff is so much faster than the commercial.
Mm, mm. Yo, how is that industry changing, and different than it was when you first got into it?
Technology is always upgrading, right? So a lot of what changed was a lot of these smaller programs that kept on popping out that made it easier for the design aspect for contractors to go ahead and start doing some of their preliminary stuff themselves. We work with one contractor in particular. He's based out of Eustis, um, and he pretty much draws up his own floor plan preliminary on everything and just sends us that once he goes ahead and signs the deal with the homeowner. So that aspect kind of cut a lot of our portion out to begin with, but those programs aren't great for the actual permitting and engineering side yet. So
Hmm.
that's where our need is still there and our design aspect is still there.
The transparency is a core value.
Yeah.
Why is that so important?
So what I was kind of bringing up a little bit earlier is the construction industry in general has always gotten this bad rap from, people that, rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, and you get a lot of contractors that are upside down a lot of the time. So my position coming from the construction industry, moving into the drafting side, was always that hey, we want to be as transparent as possible. We want to go ahead and let everyone know exactly what the numbers are, exactly what the margins are, I'm a complete open book if you want to go ahead and ask us anything on pricing related or how we got to our numbers or what the issue is with, any of the stuff that we have going on. So transparency for me was a lot more about trust with our client than anything else. Because you can imagine, right? If you hire a contractor and they come to you and they say, "Hey, by the way, we got a change order. It's going to be an extra $12,000 because we, can't buy, this product or this doesn't fit properly or whatever that case may be." You've always got to think back of, okay, well, they are in this to make a profit. Are they making a profit off of me, or is this truly a needed item, right? For us, transparency is, hey, I'm gonna list out exactly what we have for you here. We're gonna tell you exactly what those problems are and let you know exactly what's going on with your project, so that you don't feel like we're ever trying to take advantage of a situation or anything like that that might come up. At the end of the day, the drafting and engineering side basically sets the rules for construction for everything else. You want to make sure you can trust those guys first, above and beyond everything else that you have going on.
So in that scenario, there could be a circumstance where there's a contractor you're saying that could make up a change order just so they can make money.
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time. Yeah. I mean, so there's another aspect. When you start getting into municipal work, I we dealt with another company that used to do contract work for Disney. Okay, so we did a lot of the downtown Disney, dock framing and that type of stuff that they had down there, and we used to work this company that just didn't align with our core values, so they're not a client of ours anymore at all. But when we started doing a lot of this work, you know, Disney has a procurement process where they're trying to pick out the contractors that they want to have do that work. And these guys knew that they could go in, they could lowball a number, and then basically make all of their profit on the job off of the change orders, off of lack of plan items or stuff like that that were popping up. And to me, it wasn't, again, core value being integrity. That's not really one of those things that kind of fall in the way that I believe things should work. So again, we're not working with them anymore, but I think it's a very common thing for people to understand. Hey, I think I can take advantage of this situation here and make more money off of a change order that is quote unquote needed.
Hmm. Has culture always been important to you?
Uh, Culture has been something that at first I didn't pay any attention to because it was just me, right? So I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of fall into this trap of, okay, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to get the work done, it's all going to be me, I can shoulder it myself. And then when you start bringing on staff, it's literally just plugging holes in the boat, right? You got a leaky boat. Let's go ahead and, all right, I got to get another person to help out on this aspect, plug them in, make it work. Um, it wasn't until we got to probably about 10 employees that I really started taking a step back and realizing what the culture was. Um, Partly because we had some pretty high turnover for a while. I was burning through employees that were here for 6 to 8 months and then on to the next thing, and I can't blame them. Like, look, for me, if you get a better opportunity coming up, by all means, I want you to take that. Right? I want you to do whatever's best for your family. Um, but realistically, what I realized too is that we didn't have the buy-in from a lot of our employees at that point. Like they didn't see the vision. They didn't see why we were doing what we were doing. And I think that was part of the reason that we had as high a turnover as we did uh,
Hmm.
for a while.
What behaviors, rituals, language, what did you incorporate at that point that lowered that turnover and started moving in a direction that you were more proud of?
So I think starting off, bringing the right people on, like I talk about hiring fast and firing faster, right? That was always kind of a methodology that we have. Um, I just got the opportunity to go out to Vegas and talk to Alex Hermosi and his team out there at acquisition.com. And they kind of changed the way that I thought about a lot of that kind of stuff. There's a guy named Frank out there that runs a lot of their recruiting. Um, and we're taking a lot more time now on picking the right people that are going to fit with the right culture. uh, you know, it's even in the book right now, the hire fast, hire faster, hire fast, fire faster method, right? And it wasn't until after I got back that I really started thinking about all that. I'm like, you know what? We are to a point where we don't need to plug the holes as fast anymore. Let's start building out a little bit of depth on our, our roster sheet there. Like start a little bit of bench depth for the players that we want to have be around for a while and kind of keep that culture mindset with everyone else. Um, and really, once you start getting a couple of the leaders in the company pushing the culture, and it's not all coming from me, that's where I start seeing a lot of that stuff actually grow better.
So you, at one time, very were quick to bring people in, and
Yep.
then since that's changed to where you slowed down.
Yeah. So we slowed down the front end, right? So it used to be, do you know how to use the program? Right. So that we have a program that is basically what we create all our blueprints off of. Hey, do you know how to use the program? Do you have any construction concepts? Right. And the two of those things, perfect. You're hired. Go sit in the seat. Go do the stuff. Make the product. And those are the people that don't last. Those are the people that are in and out, and they're here for just a job, and they move on. On what
Yeah,
we
there's
do
no teleology. Where are you from? Who are you? What do you want in
exactly,
20 years? What did you do
exactly.
last month? Where are you before? That's coming now, and you're seeing this shift in your
It's
own
a huge
purpose.
shift for
That
us. Yeah,
aligns with your value of family.
exactly. Yep.
That's
And
exciting.
it is. Yeah, it's look, I think the hard part about any of this for anybody is that we all kind of have to learn from the scars that we get along the way, right? So,
Good quote.
um, yeah. So it's just one of those things that you start realizing what didn't work and start trying to make those modifications. And that's why you brought up my business partner and the contractor Reagan that you've talked to him a few times.
Reagan.
And dude, yeah, he's a great guy. I'm so happy that he and I kind of aligned. I think it was back in 2019 that we really started working with each other on. That was back when he had his own construction company and
Wow.
doing all that. But um, he's kind of coined 2025 as the year of relationships for us, right? Like this is just the year that we're trying to go out and meet as many people in across multiple industries and kind of learn from people that have had set up better businesses and have set up better product processes and products and trying to learn, right? So like those
Mm.
are the shortcuts that any business owner can really take to go ahead and get their business further along and not have to go ahead and do it the hard way of like, okay, well that didn't work. Let me see what I got to change and how we can work that out.
What is the contractor you're saying your partners with Reagan Weiss in?
Yeah. So the contractor is a single family construction company. So we build houses. We are also trying to go ahead and push this out to more of just a collector brand, similar to like an Angie's List, but where we get basically qualified subcontractors below us that are really good at what they do, but might not have a strong office, right? So one thing that we've realized that we're really good in our business in is the client facing side, the contract side, the money management side, all those aspects of things, right? And construction in general is one of those industries where a lot of these construction companies start as tool belt warriors, right? So they're tradesmen that are really good. Hey, why am I wasting my time working for this guy? I'm just going to go start my own company, but they don't have the office side. They don't have a firm foundation and contracts. They don't have a financial backing. They don't have somebody that can really run and answer the phones and do that aspect for them. So that's where our company's very good at. And we want to start going ahead and trying to make that transition easier for, these subcontractors that do great work but aren't great on the people side. We'll handle the people side for them and basically pass that business to them.
So the operational support, the infrastructure to back up the growth
Exactly.
of their small business into a bigger business.
That is what our main goal is there.
what are the pain points that you've recognized from going all over the country and meeting with people, the contractors?
Yeah. We met with all kinds of people this year so far, and I'm sure you know quite a few of them that the big names that we met with, but the smaller guys that we met with, they all seem to have the same issue, and a lot of it's payment, right? So a lot of it's getting the money out of their clients and having things that aren't contractually firm, right? A lot of these guys do too many handshake deals because that's how it's always been. Um, and until you
So
start
like it's an
realizing
agreement, they do the
exactly.
work, maybe they forget to reach out, or
So not just that,
or
but
they do, but they can't get it.
say we got a concrete company. Okay, concrete company goes out and says, "Hey, I'd love to go ahead and do your driveway for you, or this slab, or whatever that case may be. I can do it for $4,000. Handshake deal, no big deal. Keep on moving, right?" Well, part of the way through, they start going ahead and excavating out. And they realize they hit a whole clay line or something like that, and they're just unforeseen circumstances. Well, now they got to go back and say, hey, we didn't anticipate this. It's actually going to cost $8,500 instead of 4 grand. I'm going to need you to go ahead and pay me the other portion of that, right? They're just not set up for changes like that and incidentals, and that's really what construction is just planning for the unplanned. um, so we have exceptional contracts. We have great rapport with our clients. We have really the customer service mindset and the communication mindset with our clients to go ahead and keep them comfortable along the way, so that it's not hitting them with an extra $4,500 at the end of the job. So a lot of people start feeling like it's kind of a bait and switch type aspect when you start having those little minor things come up, but there's still change orders, right? So that's what a lot of these contractors struggle with, is they can still get their 4 grand that they had the handshake deal on, but getting anything above and beyond what they actually need and probably where all the profit was in the job, they're at a loss. They'll probably end up being negative on that job just because they can't collect the other half.
You're saying plan for the unplanned, because in that line of work, the likelihood of things when you're putting tools in the ground,
Right. Well, so look,
there's
you
no
can only see what you
transparency
can
under
see.
the ground. Yeah, the
Right.
lack of transparency. We don't know what the unknown will bring. So
Exactly.
it's inevitable that there'll be conflict. And it
There's
seems like there's a
never.
psychological um, paradox in the sense that if I had the capacity to have those types of conversations, like education, experience, wisdom, um, I may not even be in the stage of my life where I'd be, digging a ditch.
Right.
Not to say that I'm better or worse than anyone else. Maybe if I'm in it 20 years, I figure out how to have those conversations. But for somebody that's definitely,
Right.
not in it 30 years, they haven't
Right.
learned how to have those conversations. I could see that being a very high valued partnership.
Oh,
If that's an
absolutely.
like an inevitable, I'm trying to conceptualize the
Well, and so
process,
here's
right?
the
Like,
thing, right? Is you can get two different contractors that walk in on the same job, and one might know what's under that slab or what's underground and all the problems that they could run into, and they price accordingly for that, right? And then you have another guy that's going to come in and just say, hey, I'm going to do it for this price, I think we're probably good, and then they'll run into all that stuff along the way and still have to change order their way to the same price that the other guy was at. But as a homeowner perspective, who are you going to hire? You going to hire the guy that's $4,500 higher, or are you going to hire the guy that's cheaper and says, yeah, I can go ahead and do it. You like him as a person. He's charismatic, knows what he's talking about as far as the actual, getting the work done aspect. But now you got a bad taste in your mouth at the end of the project when they went and change order deal where the other guy knew that all that stuff was there and he probably should have been charging that to begin with. That's where
oh yeah,
a lot of that kind of discourse comes in the front end of hey, we understand there might be something that we can't see there. I'm gonna let you know we're gonna allowance this portion. uh, if it doesn't work out, we're gonna credit you money back, and if we don't need it, then great. But in the case that we do need it, you've already budgeted for it and you know you can afford it.
Yes. Well, that also goes to the education and the experience of the integrity of the customer.
That's exactly it.
The Chinese proverb, good things aren't cheap, and cheap things are seldom good. So there'll be a percentage of customers that might want to
Yep.
go the more affordable route. They didn't ask the questions that they needed to, or they, because, and then we're in this mess.
That's exactly it.
It
So,
seems like there's an infinite amount of ways for things to become muddled and confused. And so in,
well, and that's what I've been kind of saying there too is like construction has inherently turned into one of these kind of industries where there's not a whole lot of trust. Like in Florida especially, okay, we've got a lot of these handymen that call themselves contractors. They come in, they do kind of a half done job, and then they're gone, right? They bankrupt the company, they change their name, they move
mm,
on with the payment. We had a pool company down here that took a lot of deposits from a lot of people, and then declared bankruptcy and just kept everyone's money, right? So, luckily the state stepped in, started kind of helping out with a lot of that kind of stuff. But you hear so many of those on the news, and you only hear about the bad ones. You got to think there's probably 50,000 contractors in Florida. You might only know of 30 people that actually got taken advantage of, but it's a perception thing. So if we can come at this from a point of transparency in the front end and say, hey, I'm going to show you my numbers. You, as a homeowner, know that I'm here to go ahead and make a profit. I'm not going to do your job because, it's out of the goodness of my heart. I'm doing your job to go ahead and feed the families of all the people that work for us. So I've got no problem showing you I am making X amount of profit on your job,
I
right?
want to add another element of fun. This may be part two, kind of a open loop,
Uh-huh.
but then you have the other scenario where, how about let's talk about the fact that homeowners are people, and maybe the new pool for Johnny doesn't supplement the lack of, oh, we just need to be, meaning like, oh, I have access to credit. Let me build a pool now to solve the problems that actually are
Right.
like, oh, maybe go on vacation or spend more time at home, going back to your family value, right?
Uh,
Family, like there's a lot of sorts of reasons why people, homeowners, could easily overextend themselves into or extend themselves into projects where
that's so
some,
true.
I just, there's a whole nother component to this conversation that I think
Uh,
is funny and or fascinating and interesting that I would curious some of your thoughts on that. Like that could ease that the well-meaning contractor, the everyday handy person is coming in and say, all right, let me be helpful. And it's like the person is getting involved in this project for their house that like
dude,
probably if they had a coach would be like, hey, dude, don't do that. I mean, that's not the
so
answer.
I
Or
will
just,
tell you a little funny story here. This goes back to Reagan, okay? And Reagan's everything that I'm not in business. Okay, so I am very much more of the numbers guy, the contractual stuff, like focusing on just the product, right?
yep.
And Reagan is 100% the relationships, the interaction with the homeowners, the joking, the going ahead and trying to keep people happy throughout everything. Um, so I will say he's probably saved more marriages than anyone that I know, right? Because when you start getting into home construction,
Wow.
that's usually going to be people's largest purchase of their lifetime, right? You don't have a lot of these normal everyday homeowners that are spending six, $700,000 more than a couple times in their life. So this is a very important decision for them. And what we end up running into a lot is we'll end up dealing with one spouse throughout the majority of the project. And then we get probably 70% of the way through before the other spouse wants to start getting involved and making changes. Right. So Reagan's great at kind of playing that interference on the front end and saying, hey, we need you both together to go ahead and make
Mm.
selections, make sure that we know where everything's at. And it never fails. You always get one that's got really expensive taste and one that's trying to get out of it as cheap as possible, right? And those two people somehow always end up marrying each other. and it ends up being his job to go ahead and kind of fish him through that entire process there. And look, big big purchases equals big amount of stress. You know, the home construction aspect can be very stressful if you let it be, or it can be a really fun experience that people get to enjoy throughout the entire process, depending on the mindset that they bring to the table. You know,
Yeah, in closing, what are some of the successes that you'd say on each front, right? Contractors that have done business with um, um, both organizations, customer experiences that you thought was really memorable.
yeah, I mean, man, we got a lot of it. I've been in this industry for a while, and realistically, you end up running into a bunch of different types of personalities. And to be honest, that's kind of my favorite part about all of this, right? Is that there are very few times that you get two of the same type of project. Okay. I've gotten to meet so many interesting people through doing what we do. And it's kind of unfortunate, as the companies grow, I get less of that client interaction because now we've got more people to kind of handle those clients throughout the time. But um, making sure that those clients have a good relationship and a good feeling with our company is paramount to me. Okay, that's we want them leaving with a good taste in their mouth. On, oh, I'm glad I chose those guys to do what they did. Um, when you're building homes for people, that's a huge part of their life too, right? So like that's where families can grow. That's where life can kind of take hold and really change the trajectory of how people are doing. We understand one of our first questions to ask everyone is, hey, is this your forever home or is this a stepping stone into the next stage of your life, right? Because those are two very different builds, and two very different ways to go ahead and kind of coach people on how to spend their money. But
Mm,
I don't have a whole lot of ones that specifically stand out in my mind. But I do have a lot of good memories of people that have been fun to deal with. Getting to deal with inventors and getting to deal with just people that are of different varying industries and backgrounds. And I try to learn something from every person that I interact with, right? I think that's how we all gotta grow in general, is by trying to pick, if I can meet 1,600 people in a year, if I can learn one thing from each person, how much better of a person did I become, because of that one little nugget I grabbed from every person that I interacted with. So I think that's overall the reason that we kind of do a lot of what we do is to go ahead and see the impact that we're making on people's lives, because the home building industry, we are trying to repair that kind of reputation that it has. We're trying to go ahead and kind of change the way that people see construction, as this, kind of dirty, untrustworthy type of industry, and really bring back um, some type of credibility to what we do.
mm. Nick, where can people get the book and how can they follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book's on Amazon. So it's you can just search The Blueprint and my name, Nick Holmes. It's pretty easy to find there. And then follow us on YouTube, Contractor Inc. Go to our website, it's barndo.build. We got started doing just barn dominiums. I think you and Reagan had a good conversation about that. And then obviously the drafting company is holmesdraftingservices.com.
Nick, thank you for coming on the Coach Matters podcast. I look forward to next time. If you're listening to this, follow Nick, buy his book, The Blueprint. Please share this with a friend, and we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.